Hey, hi all, welcome back to the channel again. Today we will going to discuss about structural directives. So in the last video we have discussed about attribute directives, and Angular actually provides us some structural directives as you can see on the screen, the ngIf, ngFor and ngSwitch. These directives are actually used to manipulate the DOM, and as compared to attribute directives, they are only able to modify an attribute of particular HTML tag dynamically. But now, as we have a structural directives. These are helpful in manipulating the DOM elements, like adding or removing DOM elements, hiding or showing it, right? So let's look at one by one the examples. Let me take an ng container over here, and inside this let me add a para. Let's say result para. Now what I can do, I'll just use ngIf. And by the way, if you want to use the structural directives, you need to use the asterisk symbol before the name starts. Okay, and then another thing you need to do, you need to import the common module and add it into the imports array of that particular component, so that you can use those directives on this components HTML. So now we have done that. So, and again, like we have added this variable also, this is show. So based on this boolean value, it will show or hide the para. So let's see, we can see the result para over here. And now if I make it false, you will not see the para. So let's see, right, the para has been disappeared now. Let's see if we have a value of this show as a false, then in that case what do we need to show? So now let's take another example. I'm using ng container, right? And inside that I will use ng template. So now inside a template, I just use a para, named it else para, let's say. Now whenever the value of show is false, I need to show this template. So let's add a template variable for this. Let's say template, and after giving semicolon I can use else, and I can give the template variable name over there. I can mention the variable name, and if I save everything, the value is false now. So you can see the else para which is rendered on the UI, right? So this is how you can use if and else at the same time, and for else part you can show the ng template, right? Now let's see ngFor. So how ngFor is working. So I'll just comment it out over here for you guys for reference. So let's say again an ng container. Why I'm misspelling this every time? Okay. Now the same thing, right? So asterisk and then ngFor. So let's say asterisk and ngFor. And for ngFor we do need a array, right? So let's say temp array is equals to, we'll just use the number array 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5, right? So we will loop through these elements and show it on the UI. So let num. So this is also a template variable we are using over here. Let's use the temp array. Let's use this variable over here, temp array, right? And now inside this, let's use a paragraph. So in a paragraph, we will use interpolation, and inside interpolation, let's add that number. So this template variable holds a value of that particular index from that array, and we are actually showing that num template variable in a interpolation over here. So as you can see, 1 2 3 4 5 has been printed over here. Now the ngFor actually comes with another variable, or sorry, not variable but a keyword, we can say, that is nothing but a track by. And over here we can have, if you have a multiple object array list and you want to track a particular element by its index, you can do that. You just need to add a semicolon, and you can use track by keyword over here, and then to track it you need to add a callback function. So let's say track by index. So it contains first parameter as index of any and the second parameter item of any, right? So the index and the current item we will get in this callback method, and then we'll just return the item dot id to be unique. Okay, and now let's create a temp object array. Now I'll just add um, two objects into that. So it is an array. So let's add two objects. The first key is id, which is 1, id 2, and then name test, and over here the value of name will be test1. Okay, so we'll just use these two objects to render. So let's save this and you know use the temp object array over here, and instead of the num template variable we are using obj as a template variable, and for track by we'll just use the callback method whatever we have written over here. Okay, so now save everything. Okay, so now object.name we want to print. Okay, so test and test1 has been printed over here. So what we did, we have added a loop on object array, and then we are tracking each object by its index. So let me console log the item over here, and you can see the item in the console there. So let me inspect it. So inside console you can see the, so this is the object id1 and 2, id2 and test1, something like this. Okay, so that you'll have a chance to intercept that object, and if you want to add or remove some of the properties or maybe update some of the properties, you can do that over here before returning it. Okay, so this is the use case of track by, and you can use that with the ngFor as well. So if you want to take an index, so you can take that index like this, index as I, and then again semicolon, and here you can use the index as well. So let me use I, and then I'll just add some separator like pi. Okay, so now you can see the index 0 pi test and 1 pi test1. Okay, so this is how you can access the index of particular array as well. If you want to use the index, like if you want to add some conditions inside this based on index, you can do that as well using this index. Okay, so this is how there are two forms of ngFor. The first one is simple array and the second one is object array. So if you want to use the object, if you want to use the track by function or track by keyword, you need to loop through the object array itself. So it will not work for the simple number array or string array. Now let's look at the ng switch. So let me add again container. Now let me use the ngSwitch over here. Now inside the ngSwitch directive we have two things. The first thing is ngSwitch. This directive we will use like attribute directive only. Okay, but then inside this, okay, so this is nothing but works as attribute directive, but it will just check the value of particular, it will evaluate the value of a variable over here. But based on that, we are actually, you know, um, using the switch cases. Okay, so based on that, so for switch case is nothing but a structural directive. So as you can see, switch case, and over here we'll need to check the value, and based on that value we'll need to print over here whatever we want. So let's say we want to print admin and user, and we have, a user name as a variable or a property inside this, and the value of it is user first time. So let's compare this user in a switch case and then print it over here, and the second time it will have the value as admin, and let's check it over here and print it over here. Okay, so now this is acting as a structural directive because we are using asterisk over here, and this is, acting as a attribute directive. Okay, and it is checking the property of the TypeScript file. Okay, so based on this value, it is evaluating and printing appropriate thing. So let me save everything. Let me rebuild the application once. Once we rebuild the application, the screen will get refreshed, and after that you will able to see user over here. Okay, so now let's change the value to admin. Let's save it. Now you can see the admin is there, right? Now we do have a switch default case, right? So let's use that. If we have values other than these two, let's use the default case as well. Star ng switch default. Okay, so now for default we don't need to check anything, because it's a default case. We do not, uh, check there because it is a fallback kind of thing. So if we fail these two switch cases, it will directly fall back onto this, and because it is fallbacking on this, we don't need to add anything over there. So, just add a text that conditions failed, something like this. And what I can do, I'll just add XYZ as a value because we don't have a case to handle this XYZ value, right? So it will fall back to the default case. So let's see. As you can see, conditions failed has been printed, right? So this is how, these directives are, and you can use based on your needs. And you know the ngIf, we use mostly we use ngIf, and the other one is ngFor. So I personally use these two things more often than the ngSwitch. Okay, but we need to learn everything, right? So whenever we need, we can able to, or we may able to, use this because we know that why it is getting used. So to knowing that, actually knowing something is better than knowing nothing, right? So you can learn this as well, or know this, like why it is getting used and why it is there, so that if there is a need, you can use this as well. So I hope you like this video. If you like it, so you can like on the video, you can share this video with your friends. Do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit the bell icon. By the way, in the next video, we are going to learn about structural directives. No, sorry, custom directives, and we are creating our own tooltip directive. Okay, so let's see how we can create our own tooltip directives, and we'll able to do we able to pass it and use it while we hover on this particular structural directives, or in the next video we will change the paragraph like custom directives, and if we hover on this custom directives text, we we should see the tooltip. Okay, so that kind of functionality we are going to implement in the next video. So just stick to the channel, stick to the notifications, And do not forget to click the bell icon. So thanks all guys, let's meet in next video.